Am I in the right meeting or the wrong wrong meeting? Are there anyone else here, Matt? I might have come into the wrong meeting.
Nope, Patrick, you're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I hadn't seen anybody else. Hi there. Hi. I gotta put gallery view. Sorry. Hi, Jessica. Hello, Councilor Chilton. Hi.
You hear me?
Good afternoon, Councilor Brady.
Mayor, we're good.
Yeah, hi, Mayor Scholl. Okay. There we are. Okay. I'm still having trouble with all this iPad stuff. All right.
For the participants that are on here, if you would like to speak during public comment, go ahead and raise your hand now so I know. You can do that by clicking on the participants list and either raising your hand or marking yes or no so I can call on you or a mayor can call on you.
Matt, I know that Nathan from Hudson's going to be on the visitor comments.
I would like to, I can't find the little hand raiser.
Is this Judy?
Yes.
Yep, Judy, I got you marked down. So you're good.
Either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, also Nathan Smith with Hudson Garbage too. So
Okay.
Al Peterson, I don't know where the hand raiser is either.
Okay, sounds good. I've got your names down.
So typically if you go to participants on your screen and you click on that, then it'll give you options for future Zoom meetings. Yeah,
Okay.
for future Zoom meetings, you will have that knowledge.
And Mayor, we are live on YouTube and recording, so feel free to start whenever you'd like.
Okay, I was just waiting for Council President Morton to show up. Not seeing him, but we got the other four councilors here. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Wednesday, February 3rd. The time is 1 p.m. I will open it up for visitor comments. And let's just go ahead and start with Brady Preheim. I see him first on my list.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear me? I think I'm on mute.
Yep,
we
you're
can
good.
hear you, Brady.
So I'm calling about the police station. Again, I would like you to know that there was a Chronicle poll, I'm sure you saw it, that said like 82% of the people that were surveyed do not approve of having a utility tax bill for the police station. I also want to bring a little history back when the jail was built, and we had a 25-bed jail, and the county was proposing to build not a 50-bed jail, or not a 75-bed jail, not a 100-bed jail, but a jail that was over 10 times the size of our current jail. I was literally, as it seems to be now, the only voice in the community that protested the jail. And I said at the time, you mark my words, they will come back to us and they will ask for operating levy. And I was wrong for several years. It took 18 years, but eventually I was right. And of course, now every year we're shelling out about $4.5 million of taxpayer funds to support that jail. That's too big for our needs. that we have that we are subsidizing federal prisoners. I know they keep on acting like we make money off them. We don't. We lose money because we are spending our money to house federal prisoners. And again, the fallacy was there. And so again, they were all wrong and I was correct. Now you're doing the exact same thing with the police station. You're not wanting to build a police station that's maybe twice the size or 2-3 times the size. No, you're going to a police station that is 10 times the size of the current police station. In a time when, if you look around, you couldn't have picked a more possibly worse time. Businesses are closed. People are unemployment. People are literally having record amounts of services at the food bank. And I just think that it's absurd that you are wanting to spend this much money. And of course, I also find it annoying that you keep saying that, oh, we don't know exactly what the building's going to cost. We don't know exactly what the building's going to cost. You know what the building's going to cost because you've come up with numbers. You're telling us how much it's going to cost per month. You're telling us how much of a property tax it would be on 20 and 30 years. You know how much the building is. So let's just stop that little fallacy. You know how much it's going to be. It's going to be about $20 million for the building, and just come out and say it instead of trying to hide it. And I also would ask that Mr. Brown apologize to the public for the classist statement that he made about renters using more police services. I did a public records request for that information, and of course that information doesn't exist. And the fact that he would say that, and the fact that your ad hoc committee said that and came back with that tells me that clearly you handpicked a group of people that told you exactly what I wanted you to hear. I think it would be no different than you saying, oh, well, black people use more police, or gay people use more police. I find it offensive that he said it, and I think that it's nothing but classism. And I think that you owe the city, and he owes those people that rent an apology. And I also, that's done with my time. My aunt is also here and also wants to do public comment. You just start talking.
Hi, I'm Nancy Whitney. I have a mask on because I'm at Brady's house. And I also object to the fact that you intend to build a 22,000 square foot new police department. And I also understand that the land you're looking at right now is in a floodplain. Now, one of the things that bothers me a lot is that the committee, the ad hoc committee you formed to get these proposals before the people, several of them don't even live within the city limits of St. Helens. And I'm also sick of the same old people who served on these committees. And things have not worked out good for us in the past few years. I took a cruise through town this morning, and do you know there are 34 businesses that have shut down? And some of them have resale businesses in there, but this town is dying. It needs help. I'm sorry, I see people. This is the first time I've done this, so I'm not used to, okay, anyway, our population has also declined, and our police department has less officers than it did 12 years ago. And there's been an increase in our property taxes. Now, the difference is you can put it before the people and you can let them vote on it. But the only way you can keep them from voting on it, of course, is to let this ad hoc committee make the decision that it's going to be added to our water bill. Please, you need to rethink what you're doing. St. Helens is going downhill, and it's going downhill pretty quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to our next on my list is Judy Thompson. Judy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, thank you, Rick. My name is Judy Thompson, and I'm here to comment on the memorandum of understanding that's on your agenda today for Main Street and Shedco. And first I wanted to give a little background. I became involved in 2013 with the organization after, a hard day at work. And
I should have said something about Main Street.
Oh, Brady, can you mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Matt, could you mute Brady, please? Sorry, Judy.
Oh, okay.
I apologize for that.
A little background, when I became involved in 2013 after work, I'd go walking and all the flower planters around town were like kind of forgotten and filled with garbage and cigarette butts. So I started cleaning those up and planting flowers in them. And one of the founders of Shedco knew I was doing that, and that was Steve Topaz. And he invited me to a Shedco meeting, and I've been, that was at the Cozy Corner. And I've been with Shedco ever since in some way, shape, or form. And today I'm here to invite the council to look to the future and to seeing what a functional Main Street would bring to our community. And having that dedicated person to connect uptown and downtown is so important, because so many of our business people, they can't get out and do those connections because they're running their stores. And then a functioning Main Street would also be very appealing to future developers for the waterfront. Main Street also offers means of preservation, revitalization of structures and businesses in many different ways that can happen. And Main Street offers many opportunities for partnerships of all kinds. And I just wanted to thank the parties that were involved in doing these discussions. And that was John Walsh and you, Mayor Scholl, Rachel Berry, and Oregon Main Street Coordinator Sherry Stewart, and our Shedco board members, Al Peterson and Doug and Brenda and Dana and a few others. And I just want to thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to having a real positive outcome, and so we can get to work on this. We got it. We just need to move on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, so I'll just roll right into Al after that, because I imagine he's the chair of Shedco. So Al, if you want to unmute yourself, if you can.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
I can hear you. Can't see you.
Hold on a second.
There you are.
This is Al Peterson. As you know, I'm the former chair of Shedco. At our last board meeting last week, we had new officers elected, and Dana Latrope is now the chairman of Shedco. Doug Boyes is the vice chair. I am the treasurer, and Judy Thompson is our secretary. So I just thought I'd let you know about that. The board decided to do that in the spirit of cooperation and in the spirit of the intent of the MOU, which you have copies of. The intent of the MOU is to re-energize Main Street, to restructure the board and bring on new board members and move forward in a positive fashion. So we had talked about, having new officers in the last couple of meetings. And then at this latest meeting, we went ahead and elected and reorganized our board. I 100% agree with everything Judy said. I got involved in Main Street shortly after it started, but at that time in 2007, I was a volunteer, and the meetings were still being held at City Hall. And then there was some discussion about how some of the citizens in St. Helens thought we were a city committee. So then we moved our meetings to the cozy and in other locations in St. Helens rather than meeting all the time at City Hall. And that's what we've been doing ever since. And I am in favor of this MOU. I understand how city staff came to look at the City of Independence as a model. And I think it's a valid model. So I think that we should move forward with this MOU, and I give credit to John Walsh and Rachel Berry for wanting to move that direction. And I think that, well, I'll basically tell you at our last meeting last week, we had a couple of concerns about some things that were in the MOU, and John Walsh was very accommodating, and we were able to work out something that was mutually agreeable to us and city staff. So our board has already tentatively approved the MOU, and that approval is basically contingent upon you guys approving the MOU. So if you have any questions for me, you can ask them now, or you can ask them during your agenda item. I'm open either way, and I'll be here. So that's really all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Al. Is there anybody else here that wants to speak on the MOU for Shadco?
Mayor, I
So-
still do have a couple other public comments.
I got that, but just wondering if there's anybody else while we're on that subject. I'm not seeing anybody. Very vitally important to keep that Main Street program intact and have a appreciate Shadco for being there for the city in that aspect, and look forward to working with you guys. So let's go ahead and go. I think we had Nathan who wanted to speak.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a changing of the guard here at Hudson Garbage, and I'm going to be stepping away from the district. And with that transition, some of the leadership changes, we have Josh Brown on the call, and he's going to step in as the district manager. But we also have Connolly Tumlinson, who's been with the community for the last 13 years and Hudson for the last 6. He'll be stepping into a site manager role. And Josh can kind of outline that a little bit more, as well as an introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Nice to meet you all, I guess, virtually. My name is Josh Brown. I am currently overseeing our Portland operation. I've been in the area about 4 years and running that market there. So Con, who's also on the call, Connolly Tumlinson, who Nate just mentioned, will be running the day-to-day and be the site manager here at Hudson Garbage. He was just promoted. So quick little about me. I grew up in the garbage business in a very small town in Nevada. Been in it and around it my whole life, and been with Waste Connections about 14 years when we sold our family company, kind of like Mr. Hudson and their family years ago. So looking forward to working with the council. I've heard very good things about everybody out here and the partnership we have. So I appreciate you letting us talk and introduce myself. So thank you very much.
All right. So is Con on the telephone? Is that he coming in on the telephone call there? 680 number?
I am here.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, my name is Connolly Tumlinson. I've been with Hudson Garbage Service now for 6 years, taking over as the site manager. So I'll be here managing the day-to-day operations, kind of working with the different cities and municipalities for any day-to-day issues that we have. And then also working with the city of St. Helens with all the events that we do within the city here. And I've lived in St. Helens now for 13 years. So I love being part of the community, and really look forward to working closer with the city council and city of St. Helens. So if you guys ever need anything, I'm always at Hudson Garbage Service, and either a phone call or email away. So
All right.
appreciate you guys having us on.
Yeah, look forward to meeting with you in person, Con. You want to be
Thank
called Con or Conway?
Con is a little easier for
Okay.
people to remember, so that's fine.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yep. Nathan, good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Okay. So who else do we have that wants to make?
Mayor, we have somebody on Brady's phone. It's a Kelly Harmon.
Okay.
She decided that she will save her remarks for their next city council meeting.
Okay.
That's good. Mayor, I have 2 public comments that were sent to me by email that would like to be read.
Yep. Would you go ahead and read those, Matt?
First one is from Mr. Vaughter. It says, I have lived in St. Helens for the past 6 years, the last 3 in the McCormick Park neighborhood area. I just wanted to let you and other members know how much we appreciate you and the police force do to keep us safe. I am sure you are aware of the drug sales and usage in our area. My family and several of my neighbors are in full support of the new station and a larger police force in our town. That public comment was emailed to you earlier, as well as a hard copy was put in your mailboxes. And I have one more. This one was also emailed to you as well as put in your boxes as well. This is from a Mr. Stout. Says, hello, I have lived in St. Helens for 15 years now. I am a current homeowner living in the McCormick Park neighborhood. My family and local neighbors fully support anything we can do to support the new facility. We fully support our law officers and respect them. We have a serious problem in our neighborhood with a known drug selling trap house on Du Bois Lane. Seems now our neighborhood battle has gotten more difficult with the ease of drug laws. We are looking for help. It brings a lot of unwanted traffic into our neighborhood. The problem is serious with these people poisoning our community with meth and transits overflowing the house. We will be fully involved with these upcoming meetings and support a bigger police presence in our community. Please forward to whom it may concern. Thank you. Back in the blue.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for the testimony, the handwritten testimony. I'm not seeing any other hands raised, so we're going to go to our next item. I don't see any.
Mayor, I have one other person, Claire Catt.
Okay.
Claire, do you want to? There we go.
Good afternoon, Council. I wasn't planning on sharing anything, but something just is happening right now that I'm really discouraged about. I love listening to meetings, and I hope that more of my citizens will listen to meetings and provide input and be involved in their city. That's really hard when these videos aren't being streamed live. You know, I don't think everyone has technology capacity to log into a Zoom, and I also think that for your capacity, everyone calling into Zoom, that's not super effective. So I am really hopeful that by the next public meeting, there'll be a way that community members can watch these meetings online, either through YouTube or Facebook or something else, as long as it works.
Yep. Yeah, Matt, what is the hiccup on that? I know that we were going to YouTube for archiving, but then it was supposed to go from there to Facebook as well. Correct?
Yeah, we can only stream to one at a time. So it's either Facebook or YouTube. It was chosen for Facebook just because of a lot of the stuff that our city recorder does with timestamping.
You mean YouTube? You mean YouTube?
Yeah, sorry, YouTube.
Yeah,
This meeting says it's live on YouTube. I believe the link on the website is not directing to this meeting directly. So I have reached out to Lisa to call Municode to help with that, and I'm sure she is working on that as we speak.
Okay. All right, just helps us to archive stuff and be able to actually put yellow little blockers in there for segments. So I'm not seeing anybody else who would like to make a comment. So I'm going to move on to our first item on the agenda, which is an annual report from our city forester, Brent Keller, Mason Bruce and Gerard, excuse me. All right. I've seen him on here. So Get him to unmute himself. And if you want video, you can up top bring your video up too, Brent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My video is a little
No
disruptive.
problem. Yep.
I'm in kind of a remote spot, so I found it works better to just do the audio if that's okay. But thank you very much. And my name is Brent Keller. I'm with Mason, Bruce, and Gerard. We're a forestry consulting firm. Been around since 1921. This is our 100th year. And we've been managing the Milton Creek watershed for City of St. Helens since 2006. So this is the 15th year working with the city, and we look forward to working with you folks for years to come. Look at a review of what we did last year and looking forward to this year. And we'll kind of talk about sawlog markets and future outlook for forestry. City of St. Helens forest land. 2020 in review, we had a really successful salmonberry timber sale, about 66 acres. That harvest is complete. We cut out and ended up with more income than was estimated, which is real good. About $2.5 million in income, or I'm sorry, 2.5 million board feet and about $1.4 million in income. We got really good prices at a time last spring when things were real volatile in the forest products industry with the virus situation. And so that's our second highest price we've ever got on a timber sale. So that was a real successful outcome. Also did a pre-commercial thinning project last year. You can see the map on, I think it would be your page in your packet on page 7. And I'm not sure if Kathy's on here can show the map, or maybe I could share my screen. That's disabled, but anyway, the map shows the thinning project, which took place in the north end of the property. It was 3 separate areas, 75 acres. And this thinning is done in stands that are overstocked with 400 plus trees per acre. And then we reduce that stocking down to 200 to 250 trees per acre, redistribute the growing capacity of the stand, and then prevent it from slowing down and remaining productive and vigorous as we look to the future, harvesting at 40 to 45, 50 years. So that was done last year as well. 2021, we're planning another pre-commercial thinning. There's one, it's 40 acres, which is 2 units. One's in the north part of the property and one's adjacent actually to our last timber sale in the south. And then we'll talk a little bit later here in my presentation about possibly a potential timber sale for this year, which would be about 50 acres, roughly 1.25 million board feet, and you conservatively could plan on $625,000 in income off of that. Looking at the current sawlog market, in February of this year, the small log market, which is the type of timber you have in the watershed, prices are $700 to $800 per 1,000 board feet delivered. That's higher than this time last year. Most mills have plenty of logs, and there's a lot of volume out there, particularly from the forest fire salvage volume, but most mills are continuing to pay very competitive prices. The type of mills that fit the city's timber type mostly produce dimension lumber, 2x4s, 2x6s, type of wood you'd see widely used in construction industry. Prices right now are well above the 5-year average and have risen in the last year. Lumber prices were at all-time highs last summer, then came down some and now are back up. And so by all measures, we look at the housing market remaining strong throughout this year, which of course is a key driver for this type of timber. And there is some concern, is there going to be so much salvage volume that floods the market, prices go down, and and mills curtail their production. We're not seeing that so far. Some of the mills real close to the fire areas, or some of the mills that owned timberland that burned are affected by that, but region-wide, we're not seeing a big reduction in price right now. So if we did a timber sale this year, I think you could easily expect around $500 per 1,000 board feet bid price. Of course, last year I said that and we ended up with $624 per 1,000. So wouldn't be surprised at all to see much higher price than $500. Looking at the inventory of the property, there's about 2,500 acres total. I'd say about 2,100 acres is available for harvest. So that nets out the reservoir, stream zones, roads, unproductive areas. The oldest stands at this point are about 45 years old. And there's about 340 acres of timber age 40 or greater. So if you can see the graph, I think it's on page 3 of my presentation, on page 5, I think in your packet. See the graph there, and you can see how within 5 to 10 years, about 500 acres will move into that 40+ year category. So then we're even to that point now, but certainly during that time, the city can budget for an annual harvest program going forward. In the last 15 years, we've been real conservative on harvesting. Years past, there was a substantial amount cut, and we've really worked to get back to a sustainable level. And probably you could cut 40 to 50 acres a year annually. And we've cut like 20 to 25 in the last 15 years or so to kind of fill some of the gaps with the inventory from the previous generation when there was a lot more harvesting going on. So you should see this graph level out by age class and become what we'd consider more of a regulated forest inventory. So right now, looking at future harvesting options, there's about 170 acres of that 340 that's readily available to harvest. There's 3 separate stands. It's on the last page of my presentation, and all of them at this point are in the south half of the property. And right now, the current log market's actually 15 to 20% above the 5-year average. These averages I kind of look at, particularly the 10-year average, for being a good measure of, well, is now a good time or not. If you have a timber program and you're looking for income, I would say you're in a good, steady market if you're at that 5 to 10-year average. If you're under that, I'd consider that a down market, and that'd be a time to consider your options and not harvest. But when you're 15 to 20% above that, that's a real good time to harvest if you can. So we talked about, even after we did last year's sale, doing another one right away. We kind of held off on that, but I would recommend we sell one of these 3 stands here in the next few months in order to capture this value while the market's at a peak. So it's something to consider here today, maybe. And that's what I have.
How much do we gain as far as each year for board feet versus, I mean, it sounds like it's at a pretty high right now. I'm just curious if we cut one of them or if we cut the whole 170 that was available for cut.
You mean how much growth do we get a year?
Yeah.
I think you can average probably 3% of the
3%, and we're at we're 20% over a 5-year high right now with the current market.
Right.
So, in doing the math, I guess if the market were to drop off in a year from now, and we needed to cut in 5 years from now, are we going to be at the same price? I mean, with the expansion of the growth, and the lower price.
Yeah, it's hard to say where we'll be at
Yes.
Where we will be at in 5 years is there'll be more timber coming online to harvest, you know.
Yes, because of the cuts. Yep.
And you know, your inventory, a lot of these stands that are just submersible now will be moving into that merchantable timber type. So
yeah, it was very pleasing to hear you come back with that when you took it out for bid, to come back with that, I think 624 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really good.
So
and you were conservative with your numbers in, and it was really good. So
yeah, that's a really popular sized log in this region to sell now, and so yeah, I think it'd be a good time to. I probably wouldn't cut all of it, because then we'd be back into a mode of like a 5-year hiatus, which we just went through in the last 10 years. I think we cut a lot of merchantable timber in 2014, and then we held off till just a few years ago. So now we're getting back to the point of having that sustainable level every year. It could be higher next year or lower, or that's a big debate. When the market's up, you cut as much as possible, or you do a steady amount each year. You'll capture a lot of the highs. There'll be some averages. Of course, if it's down, then you clearly, I wouldn't recommend doing something at that time. So
yeah, I mean, back from probably 07 to what, 13, prices were not good, right?
pretty average. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 2008 it fell off. By 2010 or 11, prices were back up.
Yeah, because of the pulp, right?
2008 and 9, the
Yeah.
economy was down, the market was down.
Yep. Any questions for Brant, counselors? I see Patrick Berkeley has his hand raised. Patrick, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mayor Scholl.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. This is the first type I've seen a report like this, and so very educational and informative for me. I did have just a few questions to help me continue that education. When you talk about the pre-commercial thinning, what exactly does that consist of? And is that just something that the city, we thin and it costs us, or is there any kind of income that comes from some of the thinning? So yeah, just if you could help me understand what exactly the pre-commercial thinning consists of.
Yeah, it's a cost, probably an average of about $200 an acre. It's just a treatment. You don't remove. In a really great pulp market, where you could get $50 a ton or something. Now, Douglas fir is pretty much off the market for pulp, so it's not a good time at all for pulp now. But there might be some opportunity to recover some of the value there, but it's generally just the treatment. The trees are thinned out and cut down and just left. And
okay.
So it's.
All right.
It does, it restore a lot of nutrients to the soil that way.
Right.
There are folks that run machines around in small stands and try to capture some volume. Of course, the flip side of that is there's a lot of impact to the soil then. So
yeah,
that just quickly you'll cut. Then we generally we don't spray in the watershed at all. So the competing brush is treated by hand before you plant. The slash is piled. Sometimes we burn. We generally don't. So the unit's prepared for planting. You'll plant. We do some regeneration surveys to make sure we have full stocking within that first 5 years, and then you might at 10 years look at, do we need to take some of the competing brush out? We call that slashing, where you just hand cut Scotch broom, vine maple, that kind of thing. Then from 10 to 20, stands just growing to keep an eye on things. Then around age 20, we do this pre-commercial thin, and then that's really it until that 40 to 50 year point. Now at 40 to 50, some depends on the program. If folks are going for much longer rotations, the most efficient thing economically is to cut there right around 45 to 50. The folks that want to have a 100-year rotation, well, then you might go in at that time, do a commercial thinning, you know, that kind of thing. But our program has been to do final harvest at 50. So that's kind of a rundown of forest management.
Sure. Thank you. So again, and then the follow-up. So when you speak about the, it's a sustainable. So what it sounds like then is as we cut a portion, then that area is replanted, correct?
Right. Within 2 years by law, the forest practice rules, it's got to be reforested.
Okay. And so I guess eventually what we're looking for then is like planting that so that there'll be an ongoing the cycle. I mean, maybe even hundreds of years in the future where we continually have that cycle where we're cutting acreage, planting, and then 50 years later, perhaps that stuff that we planted will be cut, and just kind of that ongoing cycle. Is that kind of the idea?
That's right. I mean, in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Well, especially once we get the things we've held off with cutting to get the inventory to a point where it's regulated, and then you'd be able to cut an average of about 40 acres a year, forever. And we look at that sustainability, not in terms of the volume, but a safe way to look at it is in terms of area. So if you're looking at, okay, I want to cut every 50 years, well, you'd only cut a 50th of the property each year. So that's 40 acres a year. I kind of, every so often want to look at, well, what's how we done over the years? So like I say, since Mason Mr. Gerard took over, we've cut about 25 acres a year. In the last 5 years, I think we've cut pencil out to about 45 or so. So, it can go up and down, but in general, you kind of want to keep a good control on the area you're cutting to make sure you don't end up unsustainable. And of course, if you did decide, hey, we got to cut everything, we need the money, well, then you just have a hiatus there while things are regenerating. So.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I think that's kind of what I had thought it was about. I just appreciate actually hearing it from a professional, and thank you for helping us to be good stewards of the property. Thank you.
You bet.
So your recommendation though is for the cut of that first cut. I think you said 45 acres. Is that what you said, Brent? I apologize.
It'd be around 50, I think.
Around 50. But we have 170 that is harvestable right now of 340.
340 that are over 40 years, but I'd say 170
are marketable or
really,
ready.
Truly marketable.
Yeah. Matt, question for you is are we getting any kind of interest on any money that we put away? Probably not.
Not right now. No, the pool account is kind of lowered over the past year and a half or so. And we've purposely not reinvested some of the funds that the city has in investments outside of our state pool account. We had about $3 million or so that we've specifically put in certain bonds that at times achieved a higher rate than our state pool account. But those have kind of gone away. So when that money comes back to us, I've just put it back into the pool and not reinvested it to make sure that we had some cash available, specifically also for some of our larger projects that are coming up that cash may be needed to do matching grants and other sorts of things.
Well, that's what I'm looking at and thinking about. Is my thinking is because of all the projects that we have, and I'm not an expert by any means like Brent is, but the few people that I do know that know timber say they don't expect it to be much higher than what it is the rest of this year, as it is sitting right now at this point in time, and just moving forward. So that being said, and we're 20% over a 5-year average right now and could potentially even be better than that. I hear 50 acres, but I hear actually 170 are available. And it's one of those decisions that the council makes as a whole. So if any other councilors have any questions for Brent?
Do you want me to, sorry, do you want me to add this on to the evening meeting for a decision? Potentially, you can just let me know after the discussion.
You know, we could, yeah, yep. Any other councilors have any questions?
Quick speculation. We're 20% above average. Is that expected to go up for the next couple of months, or is it about topped out?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I would think it's going to remain flat. I mean, that's a safe answer. But I mean, the prices have been flat since, they've been high, but they've been flat since, generally flat since the fall. It kind of went down a little as plywood and some lumber products went down, and then that all came right back up. And so it generally, you have a spike in the winter, or may start in the fall or in the middle of winter, and then you get into summer as it's easier to get to a lot of the areas to log and so on. Prices sometimes come down, but the last 5 years has been just a lot of really unforeseen economic factors. But I think it's safe to say it's going to remain where it's at now, for the next several months.
Well, California had their forest fires and burned down a lot of houses. Do we see the sales of finished lumber going up or staying the same or going down? Or is that beyond your viewpoint?
Well, I don't know. It's incredible what the price of plywood, what's a sheet of plywood now, $35 or something. I mean,
Yeah, it used to be 20.
Yeah, it seems to be really strong. You do wonder how much more could it go up. Through the I guess the heart of that whole virus situation last year, prices kept going up. It's incredible levels, and then certain species are through the roof. There's just not enough cedar and stuff like that. So, 2 years ago we said, well, it'll never be like this for another 20 years, and now it's back to not as high as it was in 17 and 18, but it's getting close again. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. Some of like the export market, for instance, where we can't export from a city, but the exporters have really been hurt by the tariffs. Well, those tariffs with the new administration could be entirely changed. So the export market could go back up. China could compete for Doug fir in the Northwest, which would push our market up even higher, because then the domestic mills have to compete with the exporters, which was a peculiar thing last year. That didn't matter. The export market was real average, and the domestic folks just pushed themselves up because there were a lot of transportation issues with lumber coming out of Canada, and just in general, a lot of coronavirus related things that created some bottlenecks. And so I don't see it going down. It certainly could go higher. A good hedge to maybe consider, maybe cutting half the volume, or maybe cutting 80 acres or something like that. But
okay. Any other councilors? Councilor Chilton, I see Council President Morton joined us.
I just wanted the clarification. So your recommendation is 50. You just now said possibly 80, and your hesitance is based off of the thought that the market could go up higher. Is that correct?
Yeah, and just to leave yourself with some merchantable timber out there.
Okay. Perfect.
My recommendation is 50, just to
Okay.
In 2014, we cut, I think, the remaining merchantable timber there were some projects going on, and that that's something you'll kind of need to figure out in terms of the income.
Yep.
You know, and I don't, and, yeah, so you'll kind of have to sort out how, you know, I guess in theory, if you cut it all now, that income would stay there and be available, or maybe earn some interest, and that'd make sense. Might be a good place to bank some value for the city out there for a few years. So
Yeah, and that's what, you know, I mean, you're talking from your perspective, and we're looking at it from our perspective with all the projects that we have that could have matching grants. So,
sure.
Yep. Council President Morton, are you there? I see Doug Morton on there, but
I'm here.
There he is. Okay. Have you been listening to him long?
Yes.
Okay.
No questions.
Okay.
I respect the opinion of our forester very much, because he's been right on over the years, and I respect his call. I have no question.
He also threw it back in our court, if you weren't listening very closely, is that he said, I guess if I had projects to do that, then maybe I would change my mind on a 50-year cut. But I'm not in that position. I'm in the position of keeping your forest sustainable and having future cuts for you available. But with the market up where it's at, there's a number of things that we have to consider. And he's not an all-seeing oracle. Nobody is. But it's 20% above a 5-year average right now. The stand of timber that we have marketable, which is 170 of 340 total. So we'd still have another 170 down the road. What I heard. Is that correct, Brent?
That's right. Well, you'll have this down the road more than that. I mean, you'll have it.
Yes. Yeah.
Perpetually going forward, we'll be in good shape. You know, one thing, another hedge, the way I look at like not cutting everything is, you know, one thing goes on in that first 5 years after reforestation is sometimes you got to interplant, or you have a lot of competition, or you don't automatically have, and you don't, so we don't know what'll happen with the weather, droughts, seedling availability.
Yep.
So sometimes we're on top of all that stuff, but it could be not, you know, it can be another hedge to, like, let's say we cut 2 of these 3 stands and left 1. You just, if you had an issue with seedlings, drought, competition,
you got something to fall back on as far as covered costs.
Take care of those issues.
Yep.
And still have a merchantable stand there, that kind of thing. So.
Okay, so let me ask you this: out of the 3 stands, which 2 would you, if I heard you say 50, which was 1, but if you were to choose between the other 2, which one would you take? Which one looks?
Yeah, I'd take, from being out there, I'd take the one in the southeast corner, and the one that's due south of the last harvest we did.
Okay, and which is those 2 combined is how many acres?
I think that's about, they're all about
50.
About 50 to 60. So that's about 100 acres worth.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Brent before we let him go?
Mayor, I was just gonna, if I could, I was gonna comment just on the use of those timber resources. And first of all, thank Brent and his team there for getting us back on a sustainable path. Some of the practices in the past, we, you know, preceding my time, most of the people on the council, is that they were pretty aggressive about their cutting and creating these big gaps in this pattern of sustainability that we're trying to get to that, you know, 50-year average, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 cuts in a year, and not do it for a year, but just hitting those peaks and timing it right. But the resources that have come off of these cuts have helped in the acquisition of the waterfront. They've advanced the planning work that we've really pushing us to a point. You know, we wouldn't have had those resources otherwise. We've been able to get the work done that we've been able to do. And, you know, we're at a point right now where it's, you know, planning is turning into design and construction, and we're going to be at some point servicing some debt related to the utilities and street extensions and things like that. So I think now is probably a good time to cut, but not overcut. So that'd be my recommendation.
Yep.
To keep on that path.
I'm trying to be conservative. So I agree. Yeah, so I agree with you. So we'll kick this up to tonight's council for a decision, and we'll have a little more talk about it.
Mayor, I think Councilor Berkeley had a comment.
Okay. I didn't see his hand. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
I did now.
Yeah.
Whatever, we're still learning. So if we were kicking this up to tonight, what exactly I guess is the question or the proposal? But because first I want to say, listening to this, it sounds to me like we do have an opportunity to be reactive and nimble. From what I did hear, that while we're at a high, that the prices may still, he's not anticipating prices going down for several months in the future. So if I think we're looking at this, the incremental approach, it sounds like we as a council have the ability to, let's say if we wanted to just commit to the 50 now, but yet if we see that conditions, make it that we need to maybe sell some more for things, that we do have that ability to be a little bit more nimble responding. So I just hope that maybe we can have that part of the discussion tonight, and exactly what will be on the agenda tonight that we are going to be considering.
So on the flip side of that, because I would allow Brent to speak on this, but I'm pretty sure, because I'm business savvy, that if we actually put 2 stands up versus 1 stand, we're going to get a better price, more competitive pricing because of larger cuts from bigger outfits with more bids available. So that being said, we could actually be shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. And it does take time for this to actually, once we approve, Brent puts it out, he comes back to us with recommendations. So actually what all we're doing is, because I've done this once with him now, is that we are going to recommend, we'd like to put it out for bid, let's say all 3 cuts. We could actually do all 3, and then we could say, but we want a bid on 2 out of the 3 and all 3. We want, so, and he can run those numbers in front of us, and he would say, okay, if you did that 3rd cut, this is what your revenue would be. I recommend going with 2 cuts like he's done to us in the past. So that's what we're talking about tonight, Patrick. There's nothing done. He'll come back to us with prices and recommendations. Correct, Brent?
Well, we'd want to put this out for bid here in the next probably few weeks.
Yep.
And then, so we only want to put out for bid what we want to cut. So we wouldn't, I could give you, I'd kind of, before this evening even, I could email John a little more detail on what you're looking at here. If we cut all 3, because I can estimate what we get and the volume and all that. But next month, or this month, we put it out for bid. We'd open bids in the middle of March, and then so like you said, that if you put out more, you do get more interest. Bigger projects, easier to get a logger. Mills have a certain amount of legwork they like to do, so they like looking at bigger sales. I mean, you always got to remember, it's a big deal to us to cut 50, 100 acres, but a lot of these, and to cut a couple million feet, but a lot of state sales, 10 million feet. So folks like Hampton, Stimson, and they own tens of thousands of acres. So, 50 acres, 100 acres is a lot more attractive. Another thing we do is we do a 2-year contract. So their price is locked in, but they have 2 years to harvest it. So that's a hedge for them with any uncertainty in the market or their schedule. They can cut it in 2 years. Now, and our price doesn't change. And of course it's paid on recovery. So actually if they take 2 years, we lock in that price and the trees continue to grow. And so that's fine. But So that's the process, but you'd want to decide before we go out for bid what exactly we're selling, because we wouldn't want to try to sell 3
Okay.
and then reject the bids of 1. I mean, we can technically do that, but we'd want to. That's not
Go through that whole process. Yeah.
That's not the
Yeah.
ideal thing.
It's yep. Right. Yes. Puts you in an awkward spot. I hear you.
So, I'll get you some numbers on. Okay, here's the 3 stands, and then this is what you have that all in front of you to decide on the amount of income and what we want to do. But the thing there would just the other reason to do that now is it's never been, in my mind, a more unpredictable time.
Yeah.
At the global level to the local level, and with just the uncertainty out there, it's just hard to say in a year where we'll be with everything. So, so that would be, this would be a good time to do it. The only caveat would be if we did, that's why I'd maybe not cut all of it, because then if we cut it all, then we, next year I'd be saying, well, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern now, like we were after 2014. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, please send John some information and we'll talk about this tonight. Thank you, Brent.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, our next item on the agenda is Library Department Semi-Annual Report. Margaret Jeffries, our Library Director.
Margaret, you there?
Yes, I am. It says I can't start my video unless you let me.
Hang on 1 second. Let me make you a co-host. And then I'll have you start your video, just in case you need to share anything from your screen.
Yes. Hello to the council and Mayor Scholl. 6 months ago, I was here before the council with our youth librarian, giving you an update on our strategic plan activities, as well as what's happening at the library during the pandemic. And I wanted to offer just a little bit of a recap. There's some new information, but I thought I'd go back briefly for Councilor Chilton's benefit, because she has, we haven't met before, and I know Councilor Berkeley well. He just gave up his position on the library board to be a city councilor, so he's well versed. But for her benefit, I thought I'd dip back just a little bit. I'll share my screen now. And Matt, should I put this on slideshow to fill the whole screen?
It's up to you. We can only see the PowerPoint that you're showing, so it's not the end of the world.
All right. So I wanted to quickly touch on what the library services are during the pandemic. And as many of you may know, we're operating a curbside window 4 days a week for a 3-hour time slot. It's serving a lot of people's needs for library materials, opportunity to renew cards, get questions answered. And so we're continuing that. We also have had a real enhanced social media presence, and that has taken a lot of forms with more activity on our Facebook and Twitter, as well as enhanced features on our website. And what I wanted to highlight today with this slide was these St. Helens Public Library videos. And you can get to those from our main page. You can maybe see the tab over to the right down in the bottom of that green area that says St. Helens Public Library videos. Now, these are something that we've always wanted to do, but the need for them has been heightened due to the fact that we're dealing with so many of our patrons virtually. And so you can only see 4 of them here displayed on the slide, but there are actually 14 in total. And they range from telling you walking you through how to get a digital only library card, which is a real positive thing during this time, as well as showing you how to search for things in the library catalog, how to access downloadable music. We even have a little tutorial from the leader of the ukulele orchestra. So I would encourage you to explore those when you have time. They're all relatively short. They have catchy music to go with them. And I'm really want to give a shout out to our library social media team that developed these. They're really quite good, and we're pleased to have this resource. Our genealogy group has moved to Zoom or Google Meets, I'm not sure which, and so they're continuing to have their monthly meetings, and we look forward to the day when we can have them back in the library, along with our the Arts Guild, the Writers Guild, and all the various groups that do meet in the library. I mentioned there's a tutorial for how to get a digital library card. That's a new feature since the pandemic started. This allows people who would otherwise have to pay for a non-resident card to sign up for digital only services. And this allows them to get the card online. And then from there, they can check out ebooks, audiobooks, download music, stream music, and access digital magazines. So these are all really ways that we have pivoted to providing virtual services for our patrons. Similarly, our youth librarian has had to change the way she delivers services to youth. You may have remembered last time we showed you the family storytime videos that she does weekly. They're posted on our Facebook page. And they're the kind of thing that if it doesn't suit you to watch story time on Tuesday mornings when you used to, you can log on and look at them anytime your young child is ready. We've also had some youth programs. We talked last time about the things, the outreach that we've done. And this is just an extension of that. We had last summer we bought an online platform for our summer reading program. And so our youth librarian, Gretchen Calderup, elected to have a winter reading program using that same online platform. She continues to supply take and make kits. Some of those we have purchased from the Oregon Museum of History and Culture. And so these are high quality activities for families to do together. And I have an illustrated slide here of our past bookmark design contest. This will be our 3rd year. We're kicking that off right now. And you can see we had some really colorful winners in last summer, but we have 3 age categories. And when we select winners, we then have these reproduced and we hand them out during the summer reading challenge. So this is your chance for fame if you're in the right age group. And lastly, as far as youth activities are concerned, we have partnered quite a bit this year with the Recreation Department and continue to do so as opportunities present themselves. There's going to be a nature program starting, I believe it's this week in the park. And so we are really taking advantage of that synergy with the Recreation Department. One of the primary purposes of today's presentation is to bring you up on our projects. We talked about them last time. This one was complete last time, but I bring it up just so Councilor Chilton has the benefit of knowing about it. We did improvements that were long overdue to our building when we were closed this summer, and the original carpet and flooring in some of the places in the building desperately needed to be replaced. And we're sorry we couldn't immediately open our doors for the public to see how gorgeous it is, but we along with painting the walls and replacing the flooring in the large public areas of the building. We've been able to do some other little tune-ups, and some of these are mentioned here, like chair rails and lighting upgrades. But this project is essentially complete. I do mention here that under item number 3, that there's a phase 2 that we hope to do in the future, and that would be to replace the upholstered furniture that is 25 plus years old. Next is the creation of a library makerspace. That's an area where we can begin with activities, STEM activities for children. This is a continuation of our Make It program. It now has a home, but over time, the makerspace will evolve to be a space for the community, not just youth. We want to see it as a kind of a living lab that people can come in and utilize. But we also would utilize it for specific library programs. This piece of the, this part of the strategic plan is still has a few little loose ends, but we're almost there as far as activities. There's just a few pieces of door hardware that need to be changed out. But other than that, we're looking great. And just for those of you who may not remember, this picture up in the upper left corner was kind of what the space looked like when we got started. We emptied it out, and then you can see some plumbing work that Roger was doing to install the sink that's on the right. But this is what it looks like now. Pretty snazzy. And we can hardly wait to get it going. You'll see on the left up against the whiteboard, there are 3 or 4 carts, actually 4 carts there. They contain things like dot and dash robots, iPads, laptops, circuitry kits, all the things that we have purchased with a earlier grant that we received from the Northwest STEM Hub. And recently you may have seen a press release for a $5,000 continuing grant that we received from them, which will help us continue to sustain those activities and add to the equipment that we have for programming for youth. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Man, what a difference that room. I mean, I remember seeing that with the old computers in it and the old little workstations, and it just, what a transformation. Wow.
Yes, it's it even has a new ceiling tiles. You may have seen on that previous slide, there was a big brown spot on one of them from a leak, and we got brand new ceiling tiles in. You also see on the floor, do you see the little squares around the floor? Those have electrical service, but they also have data lines that were rewired to go back to our public internet service that we have coming into the library for our public computers. And more power has come in and improved the Wi-Fi access point that's in the makerspace. So we're powered and ready to go.
Look forward to that, opening it up when we can.
Yes, we're going to be excited. And I didn't take a picture of it, but there's a beautiful sidewalk outside that goes from the lobby to the makerspace and then continues on out to the parking lot. So we are really tuned up and ready to go. All right, if there are no further questions, that's all I have.
I just wanted to say it looks beautiful, and I'm excited to bring my kiddos in there and enjoy it with them once you guys open up. I did have a question though. I may have missed it. Did you say there was a cost associated with citizens using this room, the makerspace?
No, it's, I suppose there might be a situation as we add more activities where you might have to purchase supplies. For instance, Gretchen just bought a heat press so that you can create designs on the laser printers and then transfer that with a heat press to a t-shirt. So we wouldn't necessarily, I suppose, be in the business of supplying t-shirts for just maybe somebody who just walked in. But as a part of our programming and a part of the commitment of public libraries is that we are tax supported. And so our programs are supported by those tax dollars. And so we don't charge fees for our activities, and never for children. So if we had a workshop, say for children, where they got a chance to try that out and make their own t-shirts, for that given program, there would be a limited size of people that could attend, and then those supplies would be provided for those that participated.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Certainly. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Have a good day.
You too.
Yep.
Rick,
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to hear Margaret talk about everything she's done and what they've accomplished. What she really didn't say is how much work went into what you saw. And the other thing she didn't talk to you about was the fact that things are changing so fast. They're planning ahead, even with this moving target. They've got an incredible crew of planning 4 or 5 things, so they at least have at least 1 or 2 things to go forward to. The STEM program is growing, and it's going to connect our town with the schools and other places. The group that they have at the library is looking into that. We're not doing it yet, but being flexible enough to, when the pandemic hit, to hit the other problems that they had to solve that they couldn't solve with people in the way. You really have to commend the library crew for being amazingly flexible, creative. And one of the things that is in one way spectacular and elegant is they're getting ready to use their computers again, which is going to take a whole bunch of work. They've built some incredibly neat, elegant, actually, plastic screens. They don't look like just yucky plexiglass. And she doesn't talk about those creative things that her crew does and how they're expanding. Well, their business is information, and the world is going to require much more information. They are connected with the schools, so that's the other part of their plans. How do they keep the connections with the schools that are changing like crazy because the pandemic rules? So if you could give an applause to Margaret and her crew, do it. But they're doing a lot that she didn't talk about, and understand how difficult some of those things were to get in place with the conditions that they are now. So we got a good group down there.
Yes, we do. I would totally agree with you 100%, everything that you just said. And I do applaud her and her crew for all the hard work, getting the drive-through window going. We watched all that transpire, and we, again, my word for 2020 was resilience, in one word. So, yes, thank you, Councilor Topaz.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so let's go on to our next item on the agenda. Review Main Street Memorandum of Understanding, John and Rachel.
All right, Mayor, thank you.
Yep.
So I think we had a pretty good introduction on the MOU here today, and the support on the Shedco side. And I'd like a chance to kind of go through and hit the highlights, not go through every point perhaps, and answer any questions you might have. But supporting the Main Street is something that the city's done in the past. Essentially, started here at the city through some AmeriCorps sponsored. There's two programs, the VISTA program and also the RARE programs, which were these 11-month cycles of bringing in a talented person to work with a group, and then they kind of rotate off. And it goes quiet for a month, and there was another one that came on, and we did that, I think 4 or 5 years. And so this is a different business model. We had mixed results with those AmeriCorps. They're good people. They did some good work. They came and left, but it didn't really have a lasting effect kind of to build the program up. And you have to restart all the time. So this is a opportunity to basically restart the Main Street program. They are functioning right now, as you've heard earlier. And it talks about the duties and responsibilities. And first of all, this from a procedural perspective, it's an agreement that renews annually. It's automatic unless it's terminated, and there's some provisions in here that gives notice and things of that nature. But I'll talk about the SHEDCO's duties, the city's duties, and then our mutual duties. And so SHEDCO is going to agree to rebrand itself as something other than SHEDCO and identify with the Main Street programs. And they've actually already done that. They've rebranded as or in the process of rebranding, but the name is technically changed now, or is it doing business as St. Helens Main Streets Business Alliance is the name. So it clearly identifies as Main Street. They will serve as a fiscal agent for any funds received, maintain records, make recommendations to the city on projects as part of their budgeting process, provide annual reports to the city council. That did happen in the past, and start to see that again. This maintain responsibility to committee members' appointments and the implementation of the respective work plans. So we're asking that they follow the Main Street program, the trademarked program. And they're advocates for the community economic revitalization. On the city side, the city is agreeing here to hire and maintain a Main Street coordinator. So there'll be a city employee that is going to work 20 hours a week for the organization. And we looked at a number of different business models, and Mr. Peterson noted earlier that the city was like the independence model, where the city had that asset of the resource to be able to use them for those activities and other things as well. But, so we're also agreeing to provide an office space that support. We're going to pay their workman's compensation. We're going to pay for the employee, basically all aspects of that. But we're trying to provide to the extent possible, we want to have an office that's outside of City Hall. So we're looking at that Masonic building downstairs to have a small portion of the will be a tourism, and then a Main Street probably share an office space over there while we have that lease there. Not a lot of expense there. We already have the building. And, we're agreeing to provide a council liaison to the SHEDCO board. So that's something the council should probably give some thought to, is who that person might be as we enter into this agreement. And also to provide funding in the annual city budget. So including attendance at the Main Street program and things of that nature to their training. We're agreeing to pay for they are going to get their insurance, their own insurance, but the city is agreeing to reimburse them for insurance. And that's very similar to past organizations that we've supported, as far as the Community Foundation. That was something that we commonly did with them. Okay, on the miscellaneous terms, we're agreeing to a board restructuring, and Mr. Peterson also noted that we're going to work together to come up with a board that represents our partner organizations, former board members, local business representatives, and basically a fresh start. I mean, they have a leadership structure in place right now. We're agreeing to a code of conduct. There's some, and also having a designated spokesperson for each organization. There's some non-disparaging agreement between the two parties. So hopefully that will resolve any future issues. And then also we have they're going to maintain records, and we have the right to look at those records. Let's see, we're going to work in good faith and work to bring back the Main Street program. There's also some language about non-discrimination, and we've added in accessibility and inclusion language just to be consistent with our diversity, equity, inclusion efforts here at the city. folded some of that into this language, into this agreement. So if there are some procedural things, as we enter into this agreement, presuming we do, this is set up for my signature, that this would be something that as part of the motion, you would I can either change this over to the mayor's signature, or as part of the approval of it, you would have to authorize my signature to that. That was just something I just realized here. So it's next steps. We're looking at creating a job description for this person. We don't have that yet. Our timeline here is to kind of get closer to the fiscal year. And it'll have to go through the budget committee process unless we're ready to go sooner than that. But there'll be a selection committee for hiring the new person that involves, although it's a city employee, we want to make sure that they're working for the Shedco board as well. So they're going to be part of that, have a voice in that. The council liaison perhaps could have a role in that. And I think that's it. Is there any questions? Or?
Well, I just, maybe you could hit on just as Al referenced, us basing this off of independence and how this is kind of a game changer where we're not looking for a grant program. We're actually going out with Shedco and the city looking for this employee to help facilitate. It's a lot different. It just is.
Yeah, it's one perspective we could write them a check and they could take it on themselves, but the city has a pretty good we have printers and paper and copiers and telephone systems and email. The electronic piece of that person having an account through the city. There's a lot of resource costs that it's probably easier for that person to be part of the city. It also offers the opportunity for that person to work on other endeavors such as tourism and or however we want to use those resources.
Yeah.
Communications perhaps.
Yes. So I mean, it's a very good thing for both organizations and moving forward. And our city is going to change quite drastically here. By government standards, pretty fast. By not government standards, it'll seem kind of slow, but ready or not, here we go. So any other questions for John? This will be on tonight. And do you want to have me sign it or do you want John to sign it?
Rick,
Patrick has
got his hand up.
Oh, so, yeah. No, it's okay. I'll still jump in again. Thank you, Councilor Tobas. Thank you, Mayor Scholl. I am really happy and pleased that we're at this point. When I was running for office, I did attend the Shedco board meeting at which the Main Street program made the presentation about its evaluation. And gave its report, the same one that was later given to the city council. And I was really impressed by the membership of the Shedco folks at that time. I think about what I saw as a real willingness to move ahead and work in a positive way with the city. And I was also very pleased at the council meeting when Mayor Scholl and I forget which of if it was Councilor Locke or Councilor Morton, who also agreed to kind of work with John Walsh on putting this together. I was really excited to hear the willingness too of the city to move forward and just think that this product and this MOU, listening to Judy and Al's testimony, makes me really hopeful about some very positive things going on. So I want to thank the Shedco board for their willingness to make some changes, and really appreciate the city, our city staff, John and Mayor Scholl for reaching out to other cities and finding models that might work for us. So I'm excited. I'm excited about moving ahead with this, and want to thank everybody who was involved in putting this MOU together.
So I guess, John, we could go ahead and just approve your signature because I don't see it on tonight. And with the understanding that we'll be looking at this in our budget cycle as well, right? For the person. the
Yeah,
funding
this is a, it's at a work session. There's no fast track with this. If there's things you want to, and you heard earlier that it's tentatively approved on the Shedco side. So this is your opportunity to take a look at it. If there's any changes, which, need to know those and re-engage on that. So I didn't assume it to be something that would go automatically for approval tonight.
Okay. I looked it over and it looked good. I mean, of course. So any other questions for John?
Councilor Morton has his hand raised, Mayor.
Okay, Council President Morton.
Yo, okay, can you see those hands that are raised, Mayor?
Well, the problem is
Is this a good way to do this?
No, I'll take my participations off because it takes about this much of my screen, which is that big, when I pop it up. So then I'll take it off sometimes because I want to see the screen. And so if I keep it up, yes, it is good. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and just for the council's information, would Shedco, the board meet once a week, every other week, or once a month? What's the meeting times and usually the duration of the meetings in the past?
Was once a month, and I think it was
last Tuesday, I believe. Last Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
Or fourth Tuesday, perhaps.
And would we foresee that being the same or very similar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. There might be a special, if something needed to get approved or something where they had to call a special session.
Right. Okay. That's just curious on that.
Yeah. Something to think about, counselors, is that we'd like to have somebody represent the city on a non-voting, but sit in on those meetings. So something to think about in moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Mayor, I think, from my opinion, on liaisons like that who are non-voting, it might be a good thing to appoint one person and then have a substitute as well. I just think that that's important so that the city always has someone at that meeting, no matter what.
Yep.
Okay.
So something to think about moving forward. And of course, we're like John said, we're gonna be moving forward to some MOU and through our budget process and all that. So.
Okay. Well, it could go in advance of but the MOU should come before.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm ready to have you sign it now. I mean, I looked it over close enough that I didn't have any issues with reading everything I read.
Yeah, if the council's comfortable, we can certainly move it to tonight's agenda. It's just a resolution or just an MOU. So.
Yep. Everybody comfortable?
We need to work to put it on an agenda tonight, Rick?
Yeah, just we'll kick it up there for voting.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Everybody's comfortable. Okay, so moving on. Review proposed waste management Dropbox franchise renewal agreement. John.
Okay, I see that Dean Camper from Waste Management is here if Matt wants to look for his comments that he might have, and also Bill Monahan, our city attorney's on the line here. And so this is something we've been working on back and forth with Waste Management, is renewing our Dropbox agreement. This isn't your garbage services. This is the big construction containers get dropped off related to construction debris and things of that nature. And and the last time we renewed this was 10 years ago. So this is an attempt to modernize it, get it up to today's standards as far as insurance and definitions and changes to ORS and appropriate indexes for adjusting the rates. And I think we've captured all of those concerns here. It's also an opportunity to align our franchise fees with other franchises that we have related to waste management or the management of waste, I should probably say. And that is that with the Hudson Waste Connections franchise, we have a 7% franchise fee. This was a 5%. We're also saying we're proposing to go up, from 5 to 7% in this agreement to align with the others. And I'm going to ask that our city attorney, if he wants to point out any other things I may have missed here, so in this update.
So yes, this is Bill. Unfortunately, I can't get my video going. Okay. Hi, everybody. Yes, thanks, John. So I had an opportunity to take a look at the draft, and the company, the franchisee, has done an excellent job of updating the agreement to make it much more modern. I think we've taken into account a lot of really good features to increase not only the franchise rate, but also the insurance coverage is much enhanced so that there is greater coverage in case there are issues to be resolved. Obviously, a 10-year agreement, it's important to keep up with the times for insurance coverage claims. Also, there were some changes in regards to the concepts of addressing issues as they arose. So I think it's I have a complete file on it. I think it's a much enhanced agreement. It's one that I think will serve you for quite a number of years, for the 10 years. We also clarified some of the definitions. There was a change to the CPI, and the CPI is more appropriate for the type of industry as opposed to a general CPI. So all in all, I think it's modernized and much more appropriate for your use in the coming years. I'd be happy to answer any questions on specifics.
I'm looking to see if I see any hands raised here. Nope. All right.
So this one is on for tonight. So.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, why I got you there, review proposed amended job descriptions.
I'm just looking at the agenda, commenting on the randomness of going from the forest to the library to the Main Street to the waste management to job descriptions. All right. So Kathy may want to weigh in. She's done the heavy lifting here, but we have asked all non-rep employees to take a look at their job descriptions and submit changes to you. Some of them are very outdated, and try to get up to speed with how the current operations and how we govern today.
John,
also taken the opportunity to standardize them, to get them into a format that's they're templated, so they look more uniform. So, Councilor Tobacco.
John, I'd like a comment. I started reading them. I've got the pile of paper, and I'd like a clean copy. Obviously, there's overstrikes and a number of things which people very familiar with find absolutely excellent. But when I try to go through it the first time for myself, I'd like to have a clean copy of before and after rather than a rework on one sheet of paper. It just, after about an hour and a half, your eyes go blah, blah. on that mess. The ones I found, I didn't find problems with, but I just couldn't concentrate to get a good, clean idea.
It is difficult to read the two, especially so many and different tasks and things, right?
I really need a clean copy. Actually, two, the old and the new.
We can provide that. Yep. I don't know, Kathy, did you want to comment on anything I may have missed?
I just wanted to add to the memo that the reason why we're doing this is to update the job descriptions to make sure that they are at what the positions, what the people are actually doing. So when we do a compensation survey, that it's reflected accurately.
Kathy, you got my dog hearing really sensitive right now. Your mic is like squealing into my.
I'm sorry.
Weird. Anybody else hearing that? Maybe it's just me. It might just be me.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to whisper?
No, it's not you. No, it's like a background noise. It's weird. What I noticed in looking through this was just cleaning up a lot of the language and like you said, what they do, what they don't do, who they answer to, who they, the pecking order. It was all kind of umbrellaed and jumbled and not delegated, is what it seemed like, kind of like.
Yes, and a lot of the job descriptions haven't been updated since 2007.
Yes. And we added one new.
Yes. That's the Parks and Recreation
Yep.
Supervisor. It's been changed to manager, but that is one that is a brand new job description that I believe is going to be proposed in the upcoming budget for next fiscal year.
Okay. Other questions? Counselor, not seeing anybody with their hand. Oh, Councilor Berkeley.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes. So first of all, I want to thank Kathy and all of the folks who did put this together. It is very comprehensive. I kind of agree with Councilor Topaz. The format made it very difficult to focus and concentrate on. And frankly, I did not have the opportunity to read every single description. And when I received the packet Friday night, I did open it up. I kind of skimmed and scanned. I did that, and then I began to wade into it, and was not able to read every one of these. So I did reach out to Mayor Scholl to ask if we could table this for approval, so that we could. And I also did give Kathy a call just to give her a heads up that I was going to look at this. But there's, two primary reasons. One, I think I have the responsibility to make sure that I look and have the best understanding of everything, even though much of it is cleaning up language and reflects things that are current practice. There still is the fact that we do have, a new job description, a new job and a new job description. Some of the, I was looking at, for instance, the community development director position, which I think included some new things in terms of relationships or supervision of the with the city planner and our building people. So basically, I guess what I'm asking is that I'm pretty sure that in the end, I will certainly approve of these, but I want to make sure that I do take the responsibility to look through it all. And also, I'd like to say, I think to honor the work that Kathy and others have done by taking the time to look at the work they did, rather than just saying, okay, good, and pass it on. So the reason I want to look at it again isn't because I don't think I'm going to find anything I'm going to particularly object to. I'm pretty sure that I will do it, but I want to make sure that I'm fulfilling the responsibility I took on when I made the affirmation. And secondly, out of respect and acknowledgement of the hard work that Kathy and others have done, that I've actually taken the time to look at what they have done. So I would ask this to be tabled for till the third week. If it's not tabled, I wouldn't vote against it. I would likely abstain, but I think so that's just the request I would like to make, and that's my reason why.
And I talked to Patrick about this the other day, and I told him that it's not an issue, that it is hard to read. I was actually able to trudge through it in a couple hours. It is hard to read because I always want to come back to the stricken part and try to read that as well after I've read it once and then read the changes and then came back to read what the changes were. So I went back to the stricken part and reading through that line. And what I found personally was, just a lot of cleaning up the language. So that is absolutely, I think is a good thing to allow you the ability, and I have that power to go ahead and put that on for the third week. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to John and Kathy, because especially Kathy. She will be able to reference anything that you might have an issue with and who was helping clean up the language in that department or whatever. So we'll go ahead and take that off for tonight.
Okay. Councilor Morton does have his hand up though too.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe I should have a flag.
Go ahead, Council President Morton.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And I just wanted to ask Kathy a comment, or staff in this sense. How time sensitive is this issue?
The draft changes have been sent to the company that's doing the compensation survey, so they can get started on that. So there's really no time sensitivity as far as you guys putting it off for a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, to address Councilor Berkeley's concern, not really concern, just interest in the community development director position being on there. That's just so that for the council's, maybe community's interest, is that this position, I looked at that position because that's a position that's a dual role of mine. I'm the city administrator, but the council's also assigned me the community development under that. And so we've updated that to reflect the current practices and talk about things we didn't do in the past as far as tourism and economic development initiatives and activities. So.
Yeah, but it was something that we created quite some time ago.
Yeah, the position was, this is from 2007. So the last time it was updated. And the reason we gave you the red line underline is because it shows what it used to say. And typically do a red line version and then a clean version, but to just read the clean version, you wouldn't know what it used to say. So.
Yeah. Thank you. I do appreciate that we did get the marked up version and all that, so it did make that difference. So I do appreciate that, and thank you for that clarification about the community development director stuff. Thank you.
Councilor President Morton, you might have to take over. I think we lost the mayor for his connection activity.
It appeared to be freezing there on my screen.
Yeah, he a little bit.
I did freeze. I did freeze, and then it kicked me out, and then it brought me back, and without even logging in. That was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, Big Brother's always watching.
Could be, Matt. Okay, so you started to freeze up, John, but I think is there any other counselors who have any questions on this? Like I said, feel free to reach out to Kathy specifically and or John, but probably Kathy specifically on questions. Okay, discussion replacing Keith Locke on the Columbia Learning Center board. So,
what is his Keith's job at the board? What does the board do?
well, the board answers was, I do believe, put in place. It's you know, when the library was built, because Mrs. Kim donated the money to build that, and I think the board was created around that. And
Mayor, I have Margaret Jeffries still on the phone. She'd be able to give some better information if that's okay with you.
yep. I'm gonna allow Mark, the expert here, Margaret Jeffries.
Hi. I'm currently one of 2 city appointees to the Columbia Learning Center board. Their primary purpose today is to fund scholarships for the Chance to Become scholarship that is awarded to area high school students. We are responsible for fundraising associated with the Black Tie and Blue Jean concert. Excuse me, Black Tie and Blue Jean
fundraiser.
Yeah, fundraising dinner and event, and then we have interaction with the students that are selected by their counselors to receive the scholarship. There are, I think, 8 or 9 people on the board, and 2 of them are appointed by the city, and another 2 are selected by the original people that formed it, represented by Marianne Christensen and her brother Michael Kim, who recently I think gave those responsibilities solely to Marianne. So there are two, and those 4 positions have to be filled in order for them to have their annual meeting. So they're waiting for the city appointee to be in place to have an annual meeting in April.
I mean, I could do that if nobody else wants to.
Well, Mayor, I'm down to the library. We work on that building. I can fit there too.
Councilor Morton has his hand raised.
Thank you, whoever recognized that.
Council President Morton, go ahead.
That hand's been raised a good amount of times through this meeting. So
well, I
anyway,
apologize. I take it off my screen. Just jump in there from now on. I don't know what else to do.
I was waiting for that. All right.
I have to continue to take it off.
In.
I have to continue to take it off my screen if I want to watch people in real time.
Exactly.
I told you guys this in our council retreat that's what's happening. I'm not trying to be rude.
Oh, I know. Okay. You know, all I wanted to say is actually the hand went up before Margaret's phone call came in. Margaret covered that extremely well with the with the object of the and the work of the board is. One thing I just want to mention is it does not have to be a staff or a council member. It can be the, I think Marion would hopefully want that one of those positions would report back to the council. But in the past, we've appointed individuals in the community at large. So I just wanted to make that point. It's an appointment.
Okay. Do we have 2 positions, Margaret? Is that what you said? We have 2 that need to be filled?
No, 2. The city has 2 positions on that board. I'm currently filling one of them.
Perfect. I wouldn't mind sitting on it because I know that it's getting ready to kick off again this year, right? If everything happens correctly, every other year is a banquet.
Well, we had our board meeting this morning and we've decided to put the black tie and blue jean to 2022.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're gonna err on the side of caution. We didn't want to issue contracts and make commitments.
sure. 'Cause it's a big
Then-
fundraiser.
Yeah.
And what about your scholarship program?
We continue to award the scholarships. We, last spring, we had to record video awards for the scholarship that were played during the virtual high school graduations.
Boy, that's going to be pretty tough this coming year with distance learning and the counselors weighing in on the effectiveness of student leadership and commitment in their studies, I would imagine.
One thing I was going to add is that when this group before the library was built, there was a group called the Columbia Roundtable, and I believe Patrick was on that group. In fact, his name is carved on a big wooden plaque in our lobby.
Is it
So
really?
maybe Patrick has some perspective about the organization, having been with it since the very beginning. Patrick, did you have anything to add?
Councilor Berkeley.
Oh,
You're-
yeah, I know. I was pleased to be on that, but I guess I'm most proud of the fact that there's a little also on that same wooden plaque, and there's a window in the children's library dedicated to the memory of my mother and my father-in-law on behalf of our children. That goes back those years. So no, I was involved. I know it, and I'm very I'm glad that this continues on, and I was glad to have been involved in that. But I guess one question I did have for Councilor Morton, you mentioned that there were some other community members at large who had shared, been one of the two appointees. Can you share any of those, the names of any of those folks?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well,
Okay.
I'm feeling kind of nostalgic. Feeling kind of nostalgic and knowing that you were on the original board, that maybe we should appoint you to this.
I'll second that. Mayor. I'll second that.
I would be flattered and humbled to kind of have that connection. I appreciate Councilor Topaz's interest, and certainly be glad that Mayor Scholl, you also are representing that. But I guess I would not say no if I were asked to fill that role.
Well,
Mayor?
yes, go ahead, Councilor
That
Topaz.
looks like the man, doesn't he?
He does, knowing a little bit of history that Margaret just gave to us. Anybody else object to appointing Councilor Berkeley to the Columbia Learning Center Board?
I think that would be a tremendous asset to our council, that we'd have that feedback of and good reporting from Patrick. Not that the mayor could not do that. No, Patrick, you're in a good position to do that.
Councilor Chilton?
Yes, definitely. Go for it.
All right. We're not going to worry about for tonight on the agenda, because we're appointing to a board. So congratulations, Councilor Berkeley. That's very neat to know the history that you were on the original before it changed over to Columbia Learning Center Board. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and thank you all for your vote of confidence. I will try not to let you down. No. And I'm glad the black tie is going to be another year. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank
All right. So let's go ahead and do we want to take a break? Let's take a break before we do our strategic action plan update. Take a 10-minute break. Sound good? All right. So we'll be back here in 10 minutes. Time is 2:56, I do believe. So we'll see you guys in 10.
Matt, apologies to you for my tardiness on getting on to the meeting today. And I could not get my Wi-Fi or my computer to respond to my Wi-Fi. And it kept going back and forth with those kinds of issues. So apologize for that. Thanks for kind of standing by. And it surprised me when it all kicked in. And all of a sudden, you know, I have no idea what was going on.
Just miraculously starts working. That's technology for you.
Well, yeah, I did get a new Wi-Fi, had it hooked up. This computer that I'm on now is my own, and it had been used before, but this was a new router, a new Wi-Fi system, and there was a password to it, and I used the same password as I did on the old one, and for some reason it would not take the password, but finally it did. So I don't know what the deal is with all of that. I'll have to call someone who knows what's going on and and get it figured, because I do not want that to happen again. That's very frustrating.
I can understand.
So in all of that, I had I'm in the living room here, and I had some treats or some part of my lunch down on the mantle, and I was running back and forth and doing all this, and I looked over my shoulder, and the dog had my lunch. So it was a double whammy. I've throttled that dog, I swear. I don't know about having a new puppy in the house, but it's been amazing. Enough.
I'm picking up a puppy next Thursday.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just hope he or she will not be the hyper dog that we have. I've never seen a dog this hyper in my life. And of course, you know, I bought it, right? Oh, heavens. Crazy. Yeah, so she now knows she's getting long legs now. She's going to be like 40 or 50 pounds. And she now knows how to open our doors because they're the latch kind, you know, they're not the twist. So she gets up on her hind 2 feet, opens up levers down on the door handle and gives it a little push. Oh my heavens. She hasn't figured out how to pull it open yet, though. That's a good thing.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
can you hear me normal?
Yes, I can.
Could you hear the screeching noise before?
Yeah, there was a high pitched noise when your mic was on. It wasn't very loud, but I did notice it, like Rick was mentioning.
Okay, so now I'm normal.
I don't hear it now though.
I don't hear it now either.
Oh, good. Okay. I left and came back. Thanks.
And just so you know, we're still live and recording. Councilor Topaz, you're not alone. You- Oh, you're on mute right now. You're on mute, Councilor Topaz. Oh, you're on mute, so I didn't hear anything.
The unmute and the mute buttons change position. Transistors don't like me.
Yeah, everywhere I seem to go, it's always a little bit different. Some people use Zoom, some people use Google, some people use GoToMeeting. Everyone's a little bit different, so it's always a game to figure out where all the buttons are.
Well, I always like the updates, which I don't understand. I find one thing that's a little disturbing here. I wear bifocals. In order to see me clearly, I've got to tip my head one way and look the other way when I don't. And that's, don't know whether I'm having a stroke or not.
Well, I hope you're not having a stroke, but I also sincerely hope that you're not having a stroke live on YouTube.
It's good for the medical diagnosis, though.
That's true. It would be easy to determine the cause of of a stroke or death or whatever happens along those realms.
What kind of conversation did I just walk into?
We're
Councilor Topaz was just wondering if he was having a stroke or not. So, I have a heart attack last meeting. He has a stroke this meeting. We're going to kind of pass it around.
Yeah.
One of the problems we were talking about, Mr. Mayor, was I wear bifocals. In order to see, I tip my head this way or that way, depending where the image is.
Yes.
And as I say, that's kind of one of the situations you're having a stroke, like.
Yep. I need bifocals. My eyes are getting very bad, very bad. It's not easy getting older.
After 15, it's downhill.
I'm getting closer.
Mayor Scholl.
Yes, Councilor Berkeley.
Yes, I thought I had worked this out with my work. I just received a text from my principal asking my attendance at a meeting. I'm going to go check it out. So,
yeah.
My apologies if I do not return. I thought I had worked this out, but I better check in. It's only my second day on the job, so I better check in with her. And I apologize. I will certainly be back tonight, but my apologies. I did not anticipate having to be absent at this time.
Okay. Okay. Is it everybody Counselor Chilton, looks like back on. Are you back, Counselor Chilton and Counselor President Morton?
I'm here,
Okay,
ready to go.
I'm here.
okay. All right, well, welcome back. Now we'll go to our next item on the agenda, which is strategic action plan updates.
Just a couple things for the mayor and the councilor to note. I sent you an email just a little while ago during the meeting to let you know that staff has prepared some talking points and items regarding questions that you may receive on the public safety facility. I've set up some times there for you to meet individually or in groups of 2 with Rachel and Crystal to go over those points with you and any information and questions that you may have. So feel free to email and reply all back if you want to set up a time to do that. If none of those times work, please contact Rachel or Crystal individually and they can go with you over the phone or meet you in person somewhere. The city website and project page for public safety facility is up and running. There's a lot of great information there, frequently asked questions, history and everything. So if you have anybody that is asking questions or wants more information, you can direct them to that website. It's under business and development and current city projects. And then the only other thing I wanted to also mention, and I don't know if John was going to mention this in his admin reports, but I don't want to steal his thunder too much, but the RFP for the Millard Road property. John, were you going to just talk about that briefly?
I hadn't planned to, so.
Oh, okay. I was just going to make note of it to make sure the council knew that it's on the agenda for tonight, and that's working with Eco Northwest on the community development plan for that Millard Road property. And that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Pat. All right. Now we'll get a city administrator's report. John Walsh.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So clearly we have a lot of things going right now. We're working with the Riverwalk and the street extension project and getting those consultants on board, and you'll have some agreements in place hopefully by the shooting for the next council meeting. It might be the meeting after that, but defining the scope of the budget, and we'll have a good conversation about that. But I wanted to, on the heels of the council retreat and this discussion about serial meetings, I wanted to yield some of my time to the city attorney to offer an education on what serial meetings mean, how we, just an education on the topic. There clearly was some disagreement of, there's a need for more knowledge on this subject, myself included. So,
yep,
we could.
Well, thanks, John. So, Council, as you know, the Oregon Public Meetings Law requires that any decision that's made by the City Council be one that's made in an open setting. The idea is that there would be notice of public meeting. There would be an opportunity for the public to look in and watch the discussion. And there are times also where the public is given an opportunity to ask questions. So over the last few years, the issue of serial meetings has come up, and I'm not exactly sure what your particular issues and concerns are. So I'll give you a general overview, and then I'd be happy to answer questions and go through scenarios with you if you like. But the issue arises initially out of a 2015 Lane County case, the Handy versus Lane County, where there was an issue of a discussion that was being engaged in offline, not in a noticed public meeting, when the commissioners of Lane County were discussing whether or not to release a public record. So what happened was the members of the commission communicated amongst themselves. Initially, there were, I think it was initially an email, well, I think first it was a conversation. So let's say it was a conversation between A and B. And then Commissioner A then had a second conversation with Commissioner C. Then there was an email communication that involved Commissioners A, C, and D. So a fourth out of 5 commission got involved in the email communication, all talking about the same topic. But in the email communication, it was just a matter of sending out some information. Well, what happened in that case was there was an allegation that the members of the commission actually made a determination offline as to what they were going to do about releasing a public record. It was an issue about whether or not there would be a meeting to discuss a public record and then the actual release of the record. So that Handy case in 2015 set a lot of local government lawyers and commissioners and council members into a question mode of, well, what does this all mean? Because serial meetings were something that were relatively new. Then in 2018, there was a TriMet case that involved collective bargaining discussions where TriMet was trying to say that its negotiating team was not meeting and violating the public meeting law. It's a little bit of a convoluted case, but the decision seemed to be one that clarified further that there's a real concern about there being these meetings that take place that are not properly noticed and the public doesn't get a chance to look in, and conceivably decisions are made offline. So the way that this is all interpreted is that a serial meeting is something that can take place either by telephone, by email, by some other combination of those, as well as in-person meetings, that whenever you have a quorum of the members of a governing body getting involved in having conversations about a topic, that it reaches the appearance of there being a deliberation towards a meeting, it constitutes a serial meeting. Now, I recently looked at an elected essentials presentation that the League of Oregon Cities does. Some of you have probably participated in those. They do those sessions every couple years, and public meetings are a prime element of that. So when I looked at it recently, strangely enough, serial meetings were brought up during the presentation, and there was an analysis much like what I just gave you. And then there were questions asked after each of those sessions. And I think they had either 2 or 3 question and answer sessions after the meetings that they compiled, and it's on a video that's available if you want to look at it on League of Oregon Cities. I would say 75% of the questions that council members had were about serial meetings. There's quite a bit of confusion about this. So the main thing is that you not engage in unnoticed meetings towards a deliberation. And by the way, on making a decision, the conclusion is that you don't have to ultimately be making a decision. If you're just involved in a conversation of gathering information that would lead to a decision, the conservative view of the League of Oregon Cities is that you potentially could be violating the Oregon Public Meeting Law. So the simple solution is to make sure that if you're going to be making any decisions, or you have an advisory board, because advisory boards are also involved in this, or subcommittees of council, anytime a quorum is going to be talking about an issue, the proper way to meet the Oregon Public Meeting Law is to provide notice of that meeting and give the public an opportunity to participate. And participate means to be able to look in. So with that as an overview, I'd like to entertain your questions and see if there are some scenarios that you have that perhaps we can walk through to make sure this can be clearer to you.
The one question on quorum, do they have to be typically in a quorum in our council meeting, we've got 3 people in the same room.
No.
On a serial meeting, it's 3 people. Do they have to be at the same time, or could it just be 3 people?
Great question. It just has to be 3 people. They don't have to be in the same room. It doesn't have to be at the same time. So going back over the example that I gave that was in the Handy case, Counselor A speaks to Counselor B about an issue. Then after that conversation is over, perhaps even the next day, Counselor A speaks to Counselor C about the same topic. And it's all towards gathering information about that topic that could come up to discussion at a future council meeting. So it could be at a different meeting. Now, the other concern is the use of emails. It's a practice to be avoided is to send something out that involves it going to each of the council members that is to elicit a response from council members on that particular item. And so you don't want to use the reply all feature, because if you respond to a question that's sent by the mayor, for instance, if one council member responds and they send it to all the other council members, then in essence, there are at least 3 people involved in the conversation.
Okay, so hypothetically, what if I called Counselor A and said, hey, I want you to look at River Street, which is Gray Cliffs, it's a big cliff, and tell me what you think about the safety issue there as far as maybe a rail going in, because this was already brought up by a Parks Commission, but this is hypothetical. And take a look at that and look and see if there's a safety issue. I think there should be some type of railing up there. And so down the road, I see Counselor D, maybe even just at the store. And I was approached by a citizen, probably it was driven by a citizen in the first place. And I said, hey, have you ever looked at that Gray Cliffs and seen how dangerous that is down there? The asphalt down below, about a 40-foot drop there. There should really be something there. If you have the opportunity, take a look at it.
So in that case, I hear you, Mayor, saying that you're asking in 2 different conversations, you're asking a different member of council to take a look at a piece of a situation, to gather some information that they might use later on in a discussion. However, you didn't really express your view other than saying it could be a concern, so it could come up later. If in that first conversation you spoke to Counselor A and Counselor A gave you their input and they said, I think it's a real safety concern, we ought to bring this up and make a decision to do X. And then you ended that conversation and spoke to Counselor B and say, take a look at that situation. And by the way, Counselor A thinks we need to do X. Now you're sharing that person's opinion. And if that third person reaches that same conclusion, you basically have violated the Oregon meeting law. So your example is fine because you're not discussing the content. You're just suggesting that someone inform themselves by gathering some information. You're not talking about the resolution of the issue. But if you get into sharing your comments about how to address the issue in advance of an open meeting, you could be making a decision outside.
Sure. It's very confusing because I know that our senators and House representatives, do they have to follow those same rules? Because they have support for House bills after House bill after House bill. How did they get that support, Bill?
That's a great question. And the answer is that the public meetings law and many other pieces of legislation are made to apply, and specifically it'll say in statutes that apply to counties and cities. It doesn't necessarily apply to a legislative body. There are exclusions. So the Oregon
and they're
Public
the only
Meeting
ones
Law,
protected by executive session. They're the only ones protected, even though we have to follow them. The state does not step in any way, shape, or form when it comes to cities being protected by somebody actually walking out of an executive session and leaking that information. Versus their executive sessions are very much different. If you walked out and you leaked that information, you had consequences.
you're absolutely right. There are differences. No
So
question.
that's contradicting that they can do this. They can do this, get supportive bills, and they're protected by executive session. It's very contradictory towards the smaller cities. And because, number one rule is what I hear from all politicians is if you're bringing something, make sure you have support.
You're absolutely right. And I'm glad you mentioned the legislature, because I should make another point that the League of Oregon Cities is stressing about these serial meetings. If you look at the Oregon meeting law, ORS 192, 610 to 695, you won't find any mention of serial meetings in the statute. There is no statutory reference to serial meetings. The two cases I just mentioned were to illustrate that this has arisen out of the courts reviewing the meaning of the Oregon Public Meetings Law. So that leads to some more challenges for us, because typically we have the benefit of taking a look at the legislative history of the adoption of a law, and we're able to look at the Oregon administrative rules that clarify the definitions and intent and give some clarity to it. What we're struck with in the Handy case and the TriMet case is needing to try to interpret what we think the court means by their analysis. And in the TriMet case, which was about collective bargaining and how negotiations would be handled, whether there's a need for open meetings, et cetera. I've read that case a number of times, and I struggle to find the direction. All that's really within that case that accentuates the Handy case is to show that the court is concerned when there are these, shall we say, sidebar discussions among a couple members of a governing body about an issue, and then another sidebar conversation, and then something else. And there's the appearance that decisions are made. But you're not going to find that the legislature has acted on this. And when this first came up after the Handy case, we all thought the legislature was going to address this and modify the public meetings law to provide some definition, and they've yet to do that. So until they do that,
Well, because they're doing it.
and well, that could be
By those rules, they're doing it. They are absolutely doing it. I mean, it's so what was brought up in our retreat was just a phone call, a conversation to other counselors. Is that okay? And some counselors said no, it wasn't okay, and I said no, it absolutely is okay to call with an idea of sorts and to ask for pros and cons on the idea. How else do they become,
So it's okay to have those conversations to say, hey, I think we ought to be looking at this situation. However, if you get direction from another council member that, yes, I too am concerned about this, then the next step you should do is, rather than have a conversation with more members of council, is to say, well, let's add it to a work session or a study session to see if there's enough interest for us to devote staff time and other resources to analyzing this situation. What information do we need to bring forward? So your community, you do a great job of having a very active work session where you involve the input of many people in the public. Some communities have a work session where all they do is discussion among council members and staff and consultants, and the public really isn't asked to provide information. But that's a valuable exercise also, because it's an opportunity for issues to be fleshed out and some direction given on what information is needed. So ultimately there can be a decision. But so you don't really need advice that, oh, you should be thinking of using work sessions more often. The League of Oregon Cities, in its presentation that I saw recently, was suggesting to people who ask questions, oh, well, you could use work sessions. And sometimes that's a revelation to council members. They think that the only job that they have is to come and make decisions at a regular council meeting.
Yes.
But again, you guys do a great job already. You have a very open, transparent communication with the public, and that's what the Oregon Public Meeting Law is all about.
Yeah, but the main question was, is it taboo to even call another counselor? And I said, no, it's not taboo to call another counselor.
It is okay to call another counselor. Your challenge is to keep the topic to not making a decision. In those questions and answers that I mentioned that the league had at the elected essentials, some folks were saying, this is really difficult because, we're all in this transition that we have either new mayors, 2 or 3 members of council. We need to know how we can get to know each other, isn't there a way that we can get together and not talk about city business, but to find out what other people's interests are? Because we don't know each other. We want to, and you need to know who someone is, what their values are, what their interests are, so that you can know how to communicate and be a well-functioning team. And the answer that the league gave was, yes, you definitely can have those types of meetings. Now, it may be helpful to have that meeting with a public notice and say, we're going to do that in a study session. But there are ways to have you all together in a group without noticing it as a public meeting. The example that the league gave was the community that a couple years ago had a Christmas tree that was going to be delivered to the Capitol. And everybody wanted to go along to that activity. So they were all going to ride in a van together. Well, that raises concern. How do you get 5 council members into a van and include the public so they can go along, unless you rent a big bus? And the league said that was perfectly acceptable to have all the council members ride in the bus together, as long as there was a total commitment and everybody honored it, that they refused to talk about anything of public business. So when you have those conversations, a telephone call or an email exchange, as long as you're not involved in reaching any decision or asking what's your opinion on this, you're okay.
Okay.
A question on that. I've got 3 people who are talking about the same subject. And somebody says, you guys were talking at the same subject. And we all say no. Is it the perception or the proof that's important?
Well, the perception, that's a great question. And by the way, I do training on this type of thing quite often. And so your questions are right on point. The public perception is a big one. And that's why oftentimes I'll say to people, you know, even if you run into another council member at the grocery store or at a school function, and 2 or 3 of you get together at the popcorn stand at the football game on a Friday night, even though you're talking about the football score, you need to be concerned about that perception issue, because members of the public are very suspicious sometimes of council members. And they may come from a community that they lived in where it was just common knowledge that when 3 council members got together, watch out, they were reaching a decision. And while you will operate, I'm sure, in the appropriate way, people base their decisions on their past experience, the other people they've known. So yeah, you need to be concerned about the perception. Now, if there were a challenge, if someone challenged whether or not the city council had 3 people at the popcorn stand who were engaged in a discussion about city business, and some member of the public raised a concern and said that's where they made the decision. Well, when there's an allegation made, there's an opportunity, we hope, to provide the facts and there to be a discussion and somebody weigh the evidence and make a decision what's right or wrong. But even though you might be found to have great evidence to show that you weren't involved in making a decision, some members of the public might not read that answer on page 15 of the local newspaper when the decision is rendered that the City of St. Helens City Council was found to not have violated the Oregon Public Meeting Law, after the investigation goes on for a month and the community is talking about how the council allegedly did something wrong.
But if you did hypothetically end up in the popcorn line at the football game, you did not break exactly the same. The perception may be, but you knowing that you did not, you are okay.
That is correct. Yeah, legally you are okay.
Yep.
But
because that happens in a small town where 3 of us wind up at an event and it's, you know, maybe a different showcasing something, you know, and a lot of times we're just kind of staying away from each other just because of the perception piece.
Of course. And that's why when you're all involved in the community together, if, for instance, you have children at the same school, or there's an event that the school district holds that's for everyone in the community, if you all happen to go to that social event, you don't have to notice that as a public meeting. But if you're going to go to some place where it appears to be a public meeting where decisions are made, and there's a majority of you that are going to attend, it's my recommendation that you notice it. I'll give you an example. A city called me a few weeks ago. The city manager was upset because there was a Zoom meeting, and it was a regional meeting that involved a number of cities, and 2 of his city council members were going to attend the meeting, 2 out of 5. They were designated by the council to attend. So they were at this Zoom meeting, they identified themselves. But then a 3rd member of the city council, who was just there to observe, was introduced when they did roll call. So now he had 3 members of council who were at the meeting. And he called me during the meeting and said, what should I do? And I said, ask one of them, the one who wasn't designated by the council to attend, ask him to log off and mitigate the damage. There probably was not a violation of the meeting law, but why take that chance?
Yep.
This is as clear as mud. It's definitely.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the Oregon
again,
court system or the US court system that, you know, a decision is good until it's challenged and modified and clarified, or legislation is drafted that hopefully the legislation's clear.
Because the balance point between perceptions and legalities is almost indistinguishable at times.
I would not want your job, Bill, knowing that I would have to leave it up to a judge to decipher if I'm on the right or the wrong side of whatever I'm presenting. Especially when it comes to this type of stuff.
It is challenging. It is challenging.
Okay, well, I think you've been very helpful in clarifying quite a bit of information. I mean, we can call one another. We just got to be, can't be descriptive or, and if we have something, bring it to the meeting.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. We are fortunate to have a couple long work sessions a month. So, okay, John, anything else that you wanted to report on?
John, you're on mute.
Thank you, Matt. I was just reflecting on the headline. I don't know if the headline was in one of the above the fold newspaper articles about the city, about a statement that I made that perception is reality, and that's kind of in that light, that it's what people perceive is often real to them anyway. It may not be a technical violation, but something to certainly be cautious of, and appreciate Bill's training, city attorney's training, and I don't think I have any further report. So.
Okay. All right. So before I adjourn, we're going to go into executive session as previously announced. Executive session 1926.6.
Can I bring up a point there, Rick, before we go into executive session?
Yeah, let me make the announcement though. I'm making an announcement.
Okay.
We will be going into executive session under ORS 1926602E, real property transaction, and H, consulting counsel potential litigation. So go ahead and make your comment.
Some of the community have, in fact, they're from Habitat, wants to talk to the city council about purchasing some property. And some of the staff doesn't want them to talk to the council. How do we handle that problem? Because we've got property, the city's got property that it could or could not sell. They want to talk about
Councilor, I'm already in initial discussions with Habitat for Humanity on the 3 properties that you have and the council have expressed an interest to reach out to them to see if they were interested in purchasing those properties. I'm still working with them.
Okay. Up till this time, I didn't know that, there had been connections, because I know somebody said, this was on the street, they wanted to talk to council, and you seem to be the gate against it.
I have never told anyone this.
Yeah, I don't know what the conversation was, but that was the question. How does a group get to discuss with us, or do they only have to discuss with you?
No, absolutely not, Counselor. I've never said that to anyone.
Yeah,
I am definitely not any kind of gatekeeper for any.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. Okay, so,
One other thing on my list here. We had a discussion about the maps of dredging out in the harbor. And Rick wanted to know if I really had them, and I gave a copy of them to Mohammed. Hopefully he got you a copy of the dredging maps. Did you get that, Rick?
well, you can talk about this later in your report. None of us bring a list at the end of this meeting. It's later in the evening session that we do this.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had gotten the
So
maps.
both those things that you talked about. We're going to go ahead and adjourn, and we will be going into executive session as previously